is Dave with Taboo Customs. In this video today, we are going to be going through the distributor syncing process in this 98 TJ behind us. Alright, the situation we had with this TJ was that while we were driving it, we hit a large bump and the TJ just died. Pulled over the side of the road, could crank it, would not fire at all. So we pulled the Jeep back here to the shop. Now, we had always had some codes with this Jeep, but the Jeep ran great, so we never really worried about it too much because we had other things to work on. But as we went through this, we found that we believe that there's some of the issues that we ran into in our sync process, and we'll talk about those issues, but the reasons we had some codes, specifically code 1391, which is the loss of the crankshaft or camshaft sensor. The crankshaft sensor we did replace. We actually went through the whole wiring for the crankshaft sensor. The camshaft sensor we also replaced and went through the wiring. And we couldn't understand why do we have these codes until we tried to go through the sync process and actually could not correctly sync our distributor. So let's get started to try to figure out how to sync up the distributor in the Jeep 4.0. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to take a look at the distributor itself. And if you look in the inside of the distributors, you'll see there's 4 holes here. And then if you look underneath the distributor, there's actually another hole. Now, these 2 holes on that are more inward, you don't really need, but these 2 outward holes are very important. And you can see that these outward holes line up with the hole that's in the base for the distributor, and those are actually the holes that are used to sync the distributor. Now, some distributors will come with a little plastic pin, and sometimes that pin's already installed. Make sure you pull that pin out before you go and try to start your Jeep. But what we need to do is this is set up for the 4-cylinder and 6-cylinder engine. So the first hole, if you turn this clockwise, the first hole is for the 2.5, the 4-cylinder Jeep engine. The second hole is for the 4.0. So since this distributor didn't come with a pin, we just have a bolt that is pretty much perfect size, and I'll try to get the hole lined up with that bolt, and it doesn't allow too much movement in there once we have it installed, but this will help to keep us lined up. Now, you could use a screwdriver and other things, but that can be kind of tricky because if it's poking out the back and you're running into the block or something, it will be a little bit in the way. So this also, when it's installed, should point to the number 1 plug wire. So you can double check yourself with that by using your distributor cap and making sure that you are pointing towards number 1 on your distributor cap. Now let's talk about getting the engine to the correct state so that we can start working on installing the distributor. And what you need is you need the engine at top dead center for the first piston, first cylinder here at the very front of the engine, top dead center on the compression stroke. Now, whenever you start doing this, for us, we will just strip it down the way, well, not necessarily this far. Normally we'd have the fan and the radiator in here as well, but at least we would take the belt off, take the air conditioning compressor off, and just for us, we use our finger. Now, there's other methods that you can look up using balloons and different things, but if you put your finger in the hole and turn it over, you should be able to tell that you are hitting the compression stroke. Once you start feeling that air rush past your finger, then you can come over to the driver's side of the engine, and you can see down here. Now, on the earlier 4.0s, they still had a setup where it showed you advanced timing marks, but obviously you can't do anything about that, but you do have your 0 down here, which is 0 at top dead center, which is what you were looking to get. So down here on the harmonic balancer, we have a small notch, and we have turned this over until that notch lined up with 0. Now, if you go past that notch, you want to start over again, come back around, and at least then you know that you can come back around twice and you're back at the top dead center of your compression stroke. Or if you're worried, you know, put your finger back in the number 1 spark plug hole and double check that. But on the later TJ engines, they did, I believe, remove this scale here, and you have just one mark to line up. So you'll want to get those marks lined up, and then you will be at top dead center on your number one for compression. All right, so on the passenger side here, you can see we have removed our distributor, which obviously wasn't even bolted down since it broken off, and we can start aligning our new distributor. Now the big thing is you've got to align the bottom tab there for the oil pump and the camshaft gear in the correct location so that the tab will go down over that hole. So to do that, you can take a screwdriver, go down to the oil pump slot and turn that until it's roughly lined up to about the 10 o'clock position here. Then with that lined up there, you can slide the camshaft down in. You can see the fork here is pretty much almost the upper one, as close as we can get to the block as possible. So once you get down into the camshaft gear, the camshaft will have to rotate into position. So you can see it rotates into position here. Still got our bolt installed to keep everything in line. So now that that is rotating into the correct position, we have our gasket underneath our distributor. We can go ahead and bolt this distributor down. Now another check that you can do once you've got this into place is you can take your distributor cap again and check that you are pointing to the number one spark plug on this distributor for our very front number one cylinder. We were a half hole off or more, but we double checked and triple checked that we were at top dead center of number one. We even tore down the front of the engine to make sure that the timing was correct on the engine. We did end up replacing our timing chain because we had a little bit of excess wear in our timing chain. That could have also led to that. However, we still had the same issue. And so let's talk about what we did. We don't know if perhaps this is an issue with our distributor and being maybe a cheap distributor what we bought, but what we ended up having to do was, if you look at the distributor gear on the new distributor, you've got a roll pin here. Now the roll pin on this side, you can see that it's right in the middle of those two teeth. Now on this side though, it is actually pretty much lined up with the bottom of one of the teeth. So what we did was knocked out this roll pin, spun this gear 180 degrees, and put this back in place. Now our thought is that that should change this, since these sides are not even as far as how this gear is laid out. That should change the gear half a tooth, which we did. Once we did that, perfectly lined up, and we are now able to get our distributor installed correctly. So here is actually what that looks like whenever that gear is swapped around. If I can get it lined up correctly, so you can see there's no way for us to even come close to getting our slot back over the hole. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this video has helped you if you're trying to figure out how to sync your distributor, or if you've got that issue where it's not correctly lining up. You might have to adjust that gear on your distributor. So again, thanks. As always, a like or subscribe is greatly appreciated.